Okay, hello. This is Freethought Forum, a program that's sponsored by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. And I'm Joe Barnhart. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Bill Calhoun. I'm joining Joe Barnhart tonight. I'm a professor emeritus from the University of Tennessee here in Knoxville in psychology. And I want to give you a little bit about the Atheist Society. We want you to know that if you don't believe in God, or if you believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you may find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. Mm-hmm. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
Okay, and today's topic, and I hope you'll join us because we have an open discussion, is talking meaningfully about human love.
But first we want to tell you a little bit about the sponsors of our show, the Atheist Society of Knoxville. Mm-hmm. They frequently have a fun meet at a bar or eatery, and tonight's meet is Barley's Tap Room in the Old City starting at 5:30. Look for the silver jacket copy of the book for the September meeting called Animal Wise, the thoughts and emotion of our fellow creatures. This is the topic and experience you'll have at that great meeting.
Okay, and the Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular meetings monthly. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually lively roundtable discussions with a lot of good interaction. And the second Sunday is book club discussion. And the fourth is a get-together with a reflection meeting, and usually has a good potluck. That's a rationalist version of communion. And
later in the show, we'll give you our websites to visit for additional details, including times and locations. Okay. Now, in the news, I have one comment to make. The September 28th meeting of a Sunday assembly is going to be here in Knoxville, and this is an assembly that's trying to create a church atmosphere at this meeting. Check the Sunday Assembly Facebook page for updates. And for interested viewers, they are looking for musical talent. So again, check the Facebook page and send in your name and what you play as an instrument. Thank you.
Okay, so what do we move now? Into the program, right?
Yes.
Okay, so talking meaningfully about human love. And Bill here has been teaching psychology for many years. I taught philosophy and religion studies for many years. And obviously in both those fields you're going to deal with the issue and the meaning of human love. And also we want to talk about what does it mean to be in love on that. And Bill, what do you think?
This is a really difficult topic for most people because it doesn't have any simple answer, and there are various kinds of loves. Sometimes people say, well, I love a hamburger. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about meaningful human love, which involves relationships between two people. Human beings are typically social animals and live together in groups of clans or tribes. And there is a sense of anxiety when you're all alone. Hence, love is a very natural aspect, sort of like you find in the Old Testament, the statement, first there was the Word. Well, also along with that, first there was love. And we have the story in Genesis about that. And then, of course, there are other kinds of love, and we'll get into those in more detail. But this is a call-in show, and we encourage you to call the number you see on the screen, 215-2288, and ask questions, and we will answer those as best we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move into our topic more thoroughly now. There are many kinds of love, and also many uses of the word love. In the Greek, you have agape, and we'll get into this later on. Then you have eros, from which we get the word erotic, and we get the word philos, and from which we get the word philosophy, philosophia. Sophia, it's a woman's name, but Sophia is also a Greek word for wisdom. And then, as Bill pointed out, you can be in love with candy or anything, ice cream or whatever. And but we're talking now about human love, and especially the human relationship. And what is that anyhow? And let me start off, Bill, and see what you think.
Well, I think that we have to at least recognize that there are several levels of love, and the first and most significant love that people will experience is the mother-child bond. Bonding, as we say, is so important. And we know from recent adoption studies from abroad there have been some difficulty with children that were raised in an environment where they didn't get bounced around and played with, and they didn't bond very well. Matter of fact, Harry Harlow is a psychologist, now deceased, who did a lot of work with monkeys, and he first began studying how they learned. And he later, because they were raising their own monkeys to save money, they raised them, as you might expect, in a nice sterile nursery with diapers and fed them from bottles. No mommy around to hug and hold and rock the babies. And when these babies became adolescent, 2.5 years of age, they didn't know what to do with a member of the opposite sex. They had no idea about courtship, mating, mounting, or the like. And so they realized that you've got to do something about getting what you call mother love. And mother love is probably one of the strongest loves. If you go back and study animal species, males fight for territory and for mates. Mothers fight for their children, their offspring, their young, and they will fight very, very fiercely if you threaten their child. So we have the adolescent love you see of the high school year, and then you get to what we hope will evolve is the adult love of courtship and mating and dating and going together and thinking about forming a relationship and even getting married and having a family and children.
Bill, would you say that among humans in particular, that the father can develop what we often call the mother tendencies that other animals may not have among the males as much as among human beings normally? That is the cuddling and the holding and the stroking.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, in the studies of typical American type or European type families, you'll find that the father is very important for the girls because young women learn about men from their father, just like the boys will learn about women from their mother. And the fathers are very apt to get down on the floor and roughhouse with the children, boy or girl. And this is an important part, again, of this play. You see, animals play, even though people sometimes think the animals are like robots and they only move when something stimulates them. That's not true. If you ever watch a tree squirrel in a tree and their tails going back and forth like this, that animal is thinking about what it's going to do next, and then they'll run and chase each other and stuff. Well, in a normal growing up family, play is critically important to form these bonds. And those bonds will last a lifetime. Not all fathers will form those bonds. Some tend to be cold and distant, and even some mothers. If you recall, years ago they called the mother of a schizophrenic child the refrigerator mother, as a way of saying a cold, stern mother. Well, a cold, stern, non-feeling mother is not going to be the same as a warm, loving, touching mother.
Yeah, a kid is very lucky to have affection, just ordinary affection that we usually give to dogs and cats. And you would think you'd give them to human beings, especially
It is funny
children.
that the modern vet bill seems to get parallel to that for your pediatrician. We spend as much time petting our dogs and cats as we do sometimes our children.
I can remember growing up, I've mentioned this much on TV, in the generation of my parents, you rarely heard a parent say, "I love you."
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me growing up that my parents didn't love me because it was so obvious. You didn't need the word. So I would say before the word, before the logos, was the love.
Yeah.
And the love is overt, publicly observable behavior. And I think B.F. Skinner would be appreciative of this.
Yeah.
That love is something you can see and observe happening in the relationship with people.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, when you interact with someone else, all you perceive is their behavior. However, part of those behavior are facial expressions, and infants all over the world will demonstrate the same facial expressions very early in their life, and they'll recognize those facial expressions in their parents. So Skinner's correct in the sense that you observe the behavior, but there's also something we talk about as nonverbal behavior, how you hold your hands, whether you put your hands like this, which kind of close you away from others, or whether you open them and welcome them, and so on. So love is communicated in so many ways, and it doesn't have to be in Valentine candy or a check for the boy or girl who graduates from high school. Though sometimes it might be a car.
It occurred to me one time that someone said, when I was courting Marianne, are you going to send her some candy? And it occurred to me, I'm not sure Marianne wants candy, so that would not be, that wouldn't be loving behavior. To know what another person wants is the first step. It seems like in many cases, except in case of children, to know what they want is necessary for a communicating of love. Now, children sometimes don't know, very young, what is good for them, and so you have to do what's good for them, and then later on you hope appreciate that.
I'd like to change the topic just a little bit.
Good.
In view of the fact that they published in the paper today, the local Knoxville News Sentinel, a comment about some kind of statement regarding the university's policy regarding sexual relationships between boys and girls. And I happened to chance upon a book written by a female psychiatrist, and I got reading it, and she talked about college students and love, and I think her little story is worth repeating. College boys, she says, look upon the women on campus as all of them having on their back a mattress. And they just walk up and tap them on the shoulder, and then they go someplace to a dark room and put the mattress down, and they have sex. She says, women think very differently about this. And she further goes on to say that in any growing relationship, sex will become logical or practical, but she says very clearly, don't start it too soon. Women who tend to start sex with a boyfriend early on will find out in 3 or 4 sessions that the boy loses interest. And she says women take the approach that if they like the boy, then they invite him into their house. But the first date is in a very close room to the front door, very brightly lighted, and they're 2 chairs, and they're not side by side.
Yeah, we want to get into this more detail. Now we got a caller.
Very good. Let's listen to the phone
Okay,
call.
let's see what our caller has to say. Go, please.
Yeah, this is Charles from Central Illinois.
Oh, good, Charles. Go ahead.
The generations upon generations of different concepts of love has been a very confusing concept. For instance, the great adoration and love people had for their royal families, even though some of them turned out to be pretty nasty people, versus how well a mother will always love one of her children. The wide range of the concept of meaningful human love is an immense subject. So how do we differentiate between the various and different aspects that we as a social species have for the word love?
Okay, could we get a general definition and see how it applies specifically? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, to love another person is to care. I mean, this would be rock bottom, the minimal. To care effectively for the happiness, freedom, and security of the other person.
Yes. Robert A. Heinlein once said, love is being happy when the person you love is being happy.
I like that. I like that. And I'd want to add, and secure and safe. And of course, that's implied in happiness. And,
yes.
And what will make you happy doesn't always make me happy. And so there's where respect comes in, to see the difference between you and me. So that what makes one person happy in some specifics may not make another person. Does that make sense?
Always. There's no way that everybody can have absolute happiness. It's just, what I think of is it'd be impossible for that.
So there are different.
So that we have to have a realistic expectation of what happiness is and isn't.
And there's sources of happiness, and what's a source of happiness for one person might not be a source of happiness for others. For example, buttermilk would be a great source of pleasure for another person, and it would be for me to taste, but for me to drink, it would be not very good for my heart. So, does that make sense to you?
Oh, yes.
Could you?
People are looking at happiness and love. For instance, the people that are sincerely and devout fundamentalist Christians with the absolute belief that the Bible is literally true, and that we should always have that first and foremost in our schools and everything would make them entirely, utterly happy.
Okay, in fact, one of the most loving persons I ever knew was a fundamentalist Christian. She also had an enormous amount of common sense. So what I'm saying is, even when people differ with you in some areas, doesn't mean you wipe them out and you don't learn from them in another area. In fact,
yes.
You understand what you agree with me, I think, wouldn't you?
Yes, one of my best friends at work is that way.
Okay.
Yeah, we get along great.
Yeah. And I just talked to a good friend of mine who was a Buddhist, and he's a former student of mine, and I've learned a great deal from him. And so to learn to love another person, I think we're saying the same thing here, is to learn to respect our differences and that we have different sources of pleasure and learning.
Yes. The concept of as meaningful love in general is respect someone. It's like we have to respect and honor and give leeway for the other person.
Right.
Okay? Not try to dominate them and not let them try to dominate us.
That's why listening is harder than talking sometimes, isn't it?
All the time.
Yeah.
So it seems.
Yeah, especially for us, Bill, in our teaching profession, we have to learn when we're teaching. Luckily, if we get small classes, you can learn to listen to the students.
Okay.
Well, thank you for calling in. I appreciate that. You always are very helpful when you call in, and we do appreciate that. And
I try to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
From Illinois. That's a good way. Okay, now, let's continue with this. What do you think? You were thinking of something in that.
Well, I was talking about the psychiatrist who just was describing college kids, and we got to the point where the woman was showing her technique, which was to invite the man in for, quote, a date into a brightly lit room with two chairs and no alcoholic beverages, no candles, no flowers and stuff, and they discuss a little bit about each other. And of course, usually right away, people are going to ask questions about, well, what's your family like, and where are you from, and sometimes they'll get personal, ask or something even about such as, well, maybe what's your horoscope, or what's your religion. Okay. Well, if this meeting goes well, then the next time that the person's invited in for a date, it's the same room, but it's more sedated this time, and the chairs now are closer together, and there are some flowers, and there's some music playing in the background. And then they begin to explore more about each other, and they're trying to find where one comes from the city, one maybe from the farm, or from out of the city. One father's a physician, one father's a laborer, and you look for commonalities and areas of agreement, and you might even talk a bit about, well, do you support the big orange? And if you don't, you're in trouble, kind of stuff.
Yeah, speaking.
And then if this goes well, then the next date or thing is now in a dining room. And again, it's well lit, and there's nice food there, but no wine and no candles, and there are flowers, but and again, she sits at one end and you sit at the other end, and you talk back and forth and enjoy a meal and have your dessert, and then you say goodbye. And if this person passes this test, the next time the meal is very nice and the room is dark and there are candles and there's wine to have and so on. This is the way that a woman thinks that courtship should sort of proceed. And if, of course, the last time that they meet in this nice room with the darkened names and the candles and the wine, if he passes that test, then the bedroom door can be open.
Okay, now you move awful fast for me, Bill.
Well, now remember,
you're talking about the next day, and I'm thinking about the next year.
These are spaced a week or two apart.
Okay.
No. Women typically are not going to move that fast.
My experience, Bill, has been that the big difference between women and men is mostly in books. I find very aggressive women. When I was growing up, women were, that was the myth, but women were very, seemed to me, just as expressive as men. Now, in the movies, it's different, but I think in real life, our species didn't come into existence with women simply being in that mythical path. So the basic thing I would say, and see if you disagree with me, is dating should be not so formal, is simply meeting in the library or any time, and it should be called friendship. And you do it at a football game, you do it at church, you do it at a party. In other words, you get to know somebody gradually, and it takes a year before you can even get to know somebody in any meaningful sense of the word. And I think if you think you can fall in love in less than a year, you're in for a lot of big surprises. In fact, I think it takes more than a year just to begin. And so we have in this culture incredible delusions with all the violins in the background. You cannot get to know anybody within, say, 4 years very well. It takes years to know another human being. And so the idea that you can fall in love and therefore it's going to work, the word fall, I think, is a dead giveaway. You should creep into love. Falling in love, I think, even as a teenager, at the age of 17, that seems stupid. Falling in love and then pretending while you're falling in love that you're not who you really are so that you can get somebody, so that after you marry them, then they can find out what you're like. That doesn't make any sense at all. Say, oh, this is what you're really like. You deceiver and you're lying whatever you want. No. In fact, my wife said to me once, she remembered we were recording, I didn't have a line. And I think as a 17-year-old, I realized that's the last thing I need. Probably at 17, the line I'd come up with would have been kind of dumb anyhow. So what I'm getting at is This is, of course, and we're talking about in rationalists of East Tennessee. Rational love is the best kind of love. Now, how can you be rational and emotional? And that's what we're talking about. What do you think?
Well, I agree in part with you, but
Go.
I think that your idea of waiting for a year or two or three is not normally the case. In fact, many of the people do talk about falling in love and how they're smitten and how they're going to be that way forever. We do know, having lived through those eras, that those are short-lived and they are meaty. And perhaps I know the media, the books and the movies and so on, they do present distorted views of human beings. And there are very aggressive women, and there's some women who are sexually very aggressive, just as there are some men who are timid and very timid, some men who are not very sexual at all, and some women who are not very sexual. So yes, it's always a unique situation when you're pairing two people. But I don't think that most of us even come to know our spouse. I've been married for over 50 years, and there's always something new I find out. Always something new, because no one really ever really opens themselves up. And this is one of the real issues that you'll find that marital counselors always start talking about, especially with the men, who often think of themselves as problem solvers, and women as people who are feeling. And often men are given the role by society that they are supposed to be the problem solver, and women are often given the role by society that they are to be more of the nurturer and the home thing. That's false, as if my father died when I was 6 and my mother had to raise 3 children and run a 300-acre farm in California, and she did it.
And she had how many children?
3.
Wow.
And I was the youngest, and one 12, 9, and 6.
She had to be a father and a mother.
Yes.
We've got another caller. Let's hear what we have to say from our caller. Go.
Yeah, I was
Good and loud.
having a little trouble following what you're talking about here.
Go
On the
ahead.
screen there it says atheism, meaningful human love. And does that mean that human love is different for a theist or a Christian?
I wouldn't think so.
Well, then,
What's your next point? Go ahead.
well, I was thinking that, yes, it would be different.
Go ahead.
Well, when you talk about love, they're always talking about loving God and God's love, and apparently it translates into human behavior. You know, you've heard 3:16, John. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Well, I always thought that was kind of peculiar, since he didn't really give anything. I mean, not like a person who's lost a child to one of Bush's wars.
Yeah, I got you.
So, you know, it's like, it wasn't really, it's like Indian giving, or, you know, just Jesus was out on loan. They were apparently
Would you agree? Would you agree with this? That there are some atheists and some Christians who have a hang-up on religion. And there's some atheists, when they hear the word religion or Jesus or God, they go berserk. They can't think of Christians as human beings.
Oh, I really haven't heard of any atheists that have gone berserk and shot up a church or cut anybody's heads off.
I'm obviously using this.
Well, I was thinking berserk means sort of crazy.
Well, okay, you didn't get what I would get. So let me be a little more sedate about it. There's some atheists, and there's not too many, seem to me that they can't understand too easily that Christian physics is different.
Well, yeah, actually, that's what I was thinking.
That's what you were getting
when I
at.
saw
That's what I was thinking.
Human love, I thought there was some kind of difference between that and theist, and then I realized after listening to you that there is a difference.
Well, there are some Christians and some religious people who think atheists cannot love. And there are some atheists, it seems to me, that think that some Christians can't think. But what I'm trying to say is we're starting with human beings, and a loving thing to do is try to see human beings as they are, not as their stereotype would be.
Okay.
And so,
yeah, well, I have no idea if I should disagree with that or not, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you a mulligan on that and say, yes, gotcha. Joe, you're absolutely right. But what I was getting at is, what I was wondering was, is if it's possible that religion can corrupt human love. For example, people always talk about loving God and all of that, but sometimes, quite often, that love expresses itself in hatefulness, vengefulness, homicide, homosexualicide, cutting people's heads off, blowing up clinics, or passing laws to restrict other people's freedoms.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if this is an expression of their love of their God, then perhaps maybe this is taking the power of human love and corrupting it.
Oh, I think you're right.
Okay, good. I think you're right. Now you think I'm right. And
and I think you would agree that when Joseph Stalin corrupted love just as much as, say, some Charlemagne or somebody else.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I do realize there's been homicidal leaders in the past, but those people would have you killing other people for greed or some of those other human emotions, but it's religion that has you killing for love.
Yeah, when you're dead, the issue's not that big a difference. You see?
Well, I'll try to I'll see if that's the case when I die.
But I see your point is that it is a horrible thing to see somebody kill and be mean in the name of religion.
Or the name of love. That's
or the name of love. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah.
I mean, I really love you, and I'm going to have to cut your head off so that you won't go to hell, or I'm going to have to starve my child to death so that the Satan won't get a hold of him. You see, there's that, and they do it in the name of love, and I don't believe atheists do things like that in the name of love.
I'm working on a novel about an evangelical minister, and the title of the novel is Love You to Death.
Ooh, sounds like a good one.
Okay.
Any book with death or murder in the title, it's going to attract people.
Okay. Well, we're on a love program, so we'll try to move back on love. I want to thank you for calling in, though.
Thanks for answering my question.
Thank you. Appreciate the callers in. It always helps us to have just a monologue. Now, do we have, how much more time do we have left? We've got to have some kind of break
right now
coming in. So let's get to our break. In the case you just are turning in, this is the Freethought Forum, a program by Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by these two and by individuals who contribute. Shows are mostly lively on Tuesday at 5 o'clock and Eastern Time from 6. And you can get community television on Channel 6 or 12, depending on your local network here. And so tell your friends on ctvknox.org.
Okay, just to repeat that, it's CTV, Knox, KNOX.org, O-R-G. This is a call-in show, as you probably know from having listened to the two people who've called in so far, and we are live today on September 2nd, 2014. And all of you who are viewing this show are encouraged to give us a phone call, and we'll answer questions if we can. And if not, we'll try to at least give you some place to go to look for some more information. Now we'll have a brief information break.
I
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people critical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
We're back, and our program is on the meaningfulness of human love. What is meaningful human love? And we want to welcome our callers. I wanted to make this announcement. There's a Sunday Assembly is a program you can find on Facebook. It's a group, and they're looking for more musical talent. So look on Facebook on Sunday Assembly. They'll be very eager to hear from you. So our topic now is, what's the difference between loving and being in love? And if you have some ideas, well, call in with us. Bill, have you got any ideas on what it means to be in love?
It means different things to different people, but in the early phases of the development of a relationship, they both feel in love. And I think we have a phone call.
Yeah, we got a good caller. Okay, go ahead, caller. Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. This is Faithless Forrest. I'm calling in with a kind of a question. It's one that's been posed to me when I've been hosting on the air, and that is, where are the women?
Well,
why is it just two men talking today?
The trouble with that question is a good, sensible question. Asked two women, actually three women, to join us. And they all were a little shy. I can't imagine being shy on a program with us, Bill. But we're going to try to get more women in on this program. The ones we have had to come in have done exceptionally, in my opinion, exceptionally well. And I promise you we're going to keep trying to get more women.
I suppose that it could be because we use the word atheist out loud. That perhaps there are fewer women who want to self-identify that way.
No, I think the women I talk with are just shy in terms of being on television. Now, and when I know them personally, and I do, they're not shy at all. In fact, they're very good to talk with. They're just shy about being on television, and that's understandable.
All righty.
A lot of people.
Well, I heard Bill earlier speaking about an article written by a psychologist about college men and women, and I could not help but think of my own years in college and think that how, for me, it was utterly different in that I was trying to find ways, in a sense, to have conversations with women that were meaningful because I didn't think of them as just a female vessel, so to speak.
I got you, yeah.
In my college interest, I'm a physicist, and in my college major, women were very, very underrepresented. And so in a graduating class of 35 persons, there were 3 women. And so I didn't have the opportunity to talk about the things that I was going to college for, and therefore was most excited about with someone who is, let's say, on an equal level of knowledge about it. And that made it much more difficult to have conversations with members of the opposite sex. So did the lady psychologist address that by any chance, Bill?
I think you're very correct. women are still underrepresented in physics, but psychology is one of the areas where women began to appear in the classrooms very earlier than almost all of the classrooms. I had an undergraduate advisee who was a very, very bright lady. This is in 1966, and I had her in 3 or 4 classes, and she wanted to go to medical school. And she went over to the medical school advisor, and he told her women did not go to medical school. I was furious, but I just said, we'll get you into a graduate program, and we did. Got her into a graduate program in psychology. She earned a PhD, became a professor, got grant money, promoted, and everything fine, well, and good. They lost a really good woman who would have been a good physician. But Joe, I don't know if he's correct about women being shy, but I know he tried very hard. We thought we had someone coming tonight, a woman to be with us, and she, at the last minute, dropped out. And so we felt we had to carry the ball. Yeah. And I agree with Joe that we need to work on getting women.
Yeah, and this one is just shy. All 3 of you are shy only on television. They are not shy in other areas. And I'm glad to say, I mean, they're very open and expressive. In fact, when I was growing up, I didn't see this big difference between men and women. I just didn't see it. I was raised by a lot of these mountain women who, in fact, I think I mentioned on TV once, my mother would say this to her boys: if the next guy can do it, or if that fella, she used the word fella, if the next fella can do it, I can do it too. And that included defending somebody in a law court when she didn't even have a law degree. I couldn't do that. But she could. What I'm saying is that culture sometimes shapes these things, but this is not innate in male and female. It's simply that people are different, partly because of their upbringing and their environment, but to just divide the world into male and a female, and psychologically, that doesn't seem very useful to me at all. I see as much aggression in females as I do in males, and it's not, that's just not a good division.
All right, well, gentlemen, I'm going to drop the line, and I hope you get some more callers, and perhaps you'll touch on those words Joe was using earlier about the different kinds of love and how we might mature ourselves. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Well, thanks again. I appreciate the call. And Bill, we were talking about in love. And would you say that sometimes being in love is a useful and meaningful thing? It means that this person is very special to you, and that you relish this person's presence. They're incredibly interesting, and you just plain like being with them. And
yes, of course. Although I think we find quickly that phase of a relationship tends not to last, because when reality begins to fit in. But I'll make follow up one comment Joe made. I'm disappointed to see so many young people living together without being married, because I say often, no matter what they think, if they do marry, all of a sudden the expectations of both will change, and meaning that both of them have been walking on eggs for all the time that they were living together, making certain they didn't upset their partner. But once they get that piece of paper, it's, well, now you can stop being going out with your buddies for poker and beer on Thursdays, and I can go out and be with my girlfriends on Sunday afternoon, and on and on. And this is the hard thing to live with. Emotional love is so crucially important in the early stages of a marriage that it holds it together. The first shock that father typically has is when a child comes into the family, but then the love shifts. And then later, when the children get older, and normally the women and men will change roles once the kids leave home. The man may have been in a highly competitive role, like a real estate salesperson, even a policeman or fireman, a courtroom lawyer, and they're tired. And the women have been full of energy, and a lot of women go into real estate sales in the latter part of their lives, and they're very successful in real estate because in many ways, I remember saying something at a meeting is, I'm sick and tired of hearing men shout about how great their car is. Couldn't we have some women come and just say, we have some nice cars on the lot today? And since I made that comment about 2 years ago, the number of women who have been in the advertisements for automobiles has just gone up tremendously. And I think they are more pleasant to hear than someone shouting at how their car is better than anybody else's. But today we have lawyers. That's off the topic. Anyway,
yeah, I got you.
Please remember, this is a call-in show, and we really welcome anyone to call, and we'd be glad to talk to you.
I talked to several women before coming onto this program to get some input. And of course, my wife was a counselor for many years. What's been interesting to me, and I think you would agree, Bill, in marriage, you really aren't married in many ways to the same person you married many, many years ago, fortunately, because you both grow and develop. And you have more interest, and fortunately you keep some of the interest. My wife, for example, is very good in music, and I'm glad she's continued to develop this. And we all have things that we like to say we change. We're not simply what we were 20, 30 years ago, because we have other interests, we have other ideas, and other feelings that we didn't necessarily have in the same way. So and luckily, I'm not the same person that I expected myself to be. I would not have recognized myself as I am now 35 years ago, because I've changed a lot. And I certainly wouldn't have recognized myself 60 years ago to be what I am now. So in what respect am I the same person?
No, that's very important. There's a woman by the name of Carol Pearson who's written about the archetypal stages in people's lives. And she has a system in which the typical male will enter after graduation into a warrior-type mode, which could mean literally military or police work or detective work or what have you. And women typically move in more to a caregiver-type role. That's changing quite heavily. But the idea that she possesses is that, as Joe says, we do change, and we change markedly with our growth and our experience. And there are times when there are some men, for example, today who are more than happy to be stay-at-home parents, which 20 years ago would have been anathema. My golf buddies would laugh at me if I were a stay-at-home parent, and I couldn't come out and play golf on Sunday because I have to take the kids to Sunday school. That's changing, and it's changed so fast that it's really causing some problems in how we begin to study sociology, because laws of psychology and sociology just don't stay the same. They change all the time. If they didn't change, we would be robots, behaving strictly according to some plan.
Yeah, you can see sometimes in the Old Testament in particular, the male-female roles. Even God's got to be a male. I mean, and the phoniness of some of this is obvious. There's Moses going up on Mount Sinai getting the 10 Commandments, at least 80% of which he got from his mother in the first place. And he's just, and his mother probably should have said to him when he got down, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy mother." Or where is your gratitude? So what I'm suggesting is a lot of this male-female distinction that we make some of the distinction is quite useful and meaningful because it's realistic, and some of it seems to me terribly artificial and phony. I noticed my father changed enormously after my mother died. My father got very tender and gentle. I was the oldest child, and I could see how my dad simply turned into a very gentle. And this is a guy who grew up in his youth as a boxer. and there he was, taking these little children and mothering them. And it was a wonderful thing to see this tough character turn into a broader, deeper, richer, and more interesting human being. We got another caller, Bill. Let's hear what our caller has to say. Go, please.
Hi, is this Joe?
Yeah, go right ahead. Yes, please.
I wanted to make the comment that I think as more is known about falling in love, we're talking about the difference between falling in love and being in love.
Uh-huh.
When you fall in love, that they're saying that it actually stimulates a certain portion of the brain where you get the dopamine, I believe it is, and that it's like getting a drug, and that's why you want more and more to be together and don't want to be separated and can't get enough of each other. Uh-huh. And then as time passes by, it's like drugs. You want more and more, uh-huh. And then you get pretty exhausted from all of that, and you also have to live in the real world, and you uh-huh. realize maybe the bills aren't getting paid and the house isn't getting cleaned and so forth and so on. So then you try to incorporate the real life, uh-huh. And as you do that, then certain other issues might come up. Is the pets or the children or whatever. And I think it takes a period of time, as you mentioned before, maybe not 4 years, but it does, that initial period does wear off. And because you couldn't, our bodies would not sustain such high level of stimulation from one another. And and I think also during that period, one can have a false representation of who they are, maybe not even intentional, maybe intentionally, but maybe not. Uh-huh. But they think they can be what this other person wants them to be. But most people, I think, would have a hard time sustaining that beyond 6 months or 9 months.
Would you say?
And that's when you begin to see who the real person is, and maybe that's when people have a tendency to move in with one another, is in that initial, the first 3 months or 5 months when everything is high, and they're hoping by either getting married or moving in together that they can sustain that, but that's not realistic. And then when that slants off, or as Bill was saying, when you really get to see that real person, uh-huh. then that's who you need to find out whether you can live with, and ideally before you ever have moved in or gotten married, whether you can live with that person or whether their characteristics, or more, the most important thing to me is whether their values and priorities are the same as yours.
Their values, yeah. Well, what do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think she's correct. I think that, the stages of love will be very different. And you're right, you can't sustain that level of what it is like when you first meet. I remember I'd only been married for about 3 weeks, and my mother took us to one of those 3D movies, and she sat between my wife and myself, mm-hmm. and I was just upset. I didn't say anything, but today I wouldn't be upset at all, because I know that my wife has reasons to want to be friends to my mother as well as I want to be close to my mother, and so on. So yeah, those ideas change. The old idea, but at least when I was in high school, we had a bench seat in front of the cars, and you could tell which boys and girls were going steady was where the girl was sitting. If she's sitting right in the middle of the car, right crunched up next to the driver, which of course is always the man, you know they're going to get. Now with bucket seats, you don't have that kind of thing. But every so often I'll see a pickup truck with a bench seat, and the woman will be sitting way over toward the man.
Let's ask our caller.
After a while, you stop.
How long do you think a good courtship should be?
Well, I think it depends on the stage of life the age even, and stage of life you're in. I think people, when they are working and they see each other, can see each other maybe once a week for a couple of hours, it takes a little longer definitely takes longer to get to know someone. If you're retired and you can spend 5 or 6 hours or 8 hours a day, you know, you would certainly get to know each other quicker. I think one of the most important things is seeing each other under stress and under less than advantageous situations. You know, if you see how people handle the death of a pet or a family member, or if they bumped another car or another car has bumped them, just different situations. That's where, you know, that's what you really need to know.
Would you agree this is the way, in many ways, you test a scientific theory under a variety of conditions to see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, it's rational. Because, you know, the kind of music, you know, oh boy, we like the same kind of music, or we like the same movies. You know, that's transient things. Once you've got a family, or you've got issues or health issues or problems in your life, those are not the things that make a difference. But how you value things, even the point of whether you're religious or not religious, or whether you're honest, or it's okay to let some falsehood slip, or all those things. Those are the things that are important to match up on. Even in-laws.
Yes.
I think when I was courting Marianne, I got my mother had died, but my father, to meet my future father-in-law and mother-in-law before we married, and they got along exceedingly well, and that was a very good sign to me.
And now it's more likely to be your children, from a previous marriage.
That's a good point, a really good point. And your kids know you, and so maybe it's good to listen to them on that respect about the other person.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah. It's certainly how the other person reacts with your children and how you react with their children. And perhaps there's issues there that, if the other person's children have been raised with different values than you have, then that may be a pretty hard two families to combine.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. We may have to come on this program again, because we had some good calls. And I think our time is just about run out. I want to thank our callers and appreciate it so much. And we'll probably have to do this again. We just got started, really.
Yes,
okay,
thank you
bye-bye.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And do we still have more time? We do, don't we? Not much. So we're getting to say that this matter of love is not as simple as you said that the first thing. That was the first thing you said, Bill.
At all.
Well, sum up. What would you say? What's going on here?
We use the terms differently. I like your statement about agape. It refers to love from other people, supporting people. Eros it's the sexual pull that we have. And enduring love occurs when the partners become companions and they share the life experience. And that's where you have to be.
Good.